I woke up to the sound of my alarm clock echoing through the small apartment. Morning light filtered through the curtains, illuminating the simple but cozy room where my twin children, Alex and Emily, and I slept. I looked at them, still drowsy, and an involuntary smile appeared on my face. The love I felt for those two was the light that illuminated my darkest days. I got up carefully so as not to wake them, walking to the kitchen. With an automatic movement, I prepared a strong coffee and then opened the refrigerator to see what I could offer for breakfast. The shelves were almost empty, but there was still some milk and a few slices of bread. A simple but sufficient breakfast. As the toaster worked, my heart sank at the thought of the bills piled up on the living room table. As always, I was struggling to balance expenses and make sure Alex and Emily had what they needed. After preparing everything, I went to the room again. "Hi, my loves. Time to wake up," he said in a soft voice, while stroking Emily's hair. She opened her eyes slowly, smiling when she saw me. Alex, on the other hand, crawled deeper under the covers, mumbling something incomprehensible. "Alex, if you don't get up, you're going to miss breakfast," I warned, trying to keep my voice firm but full of love. "5 more minutes, Mommy?" he asked, his eyes still closed. "Okay, but only 5 minutes," I replied, knowing that every second counted. Soon I would have to rush to work at the local cafe, and they would need a little more energy for the day ahead. As soon as I finished preparing breakfast, I called them again, and this time they both got up, more alert. "What do we have for today, Mommy?" asked Emily with her bright smile as she devoured the toast. "A normal day, full of work and studies. But don't forget we have that presentation at school next week. We need to rehearse," I reminded them, making them both look at each other. "We can do this after class, right?" Alex suggested, trying to seem unconcerned. "Of course, but the sooner we start, the better," I replied, winking. My heart was filled with hope when I saw their energy. After packing them up and getting ready for work, I grabbed my bag and took one last look around the apartment. It was small, but it was our home. As soon as we left, the smell of fresh coffee was still in the air, and I felt grateful for everything, even in the difficult times. The cafe where I worked was a busy place, and as soon as I walked in, I was greeted by the comforting smell of freshly brewed coffee. The tables were busy and customers were chatting animatedly. With a smile on my lips, I began taking orders, moving quickly between the tables. The routine was tiring, but I was determined to do the best I could. "Hi, Sarah. How are you today?" asked a regular customer as I poured her black coffee. "I am well, thank you. And you?" I replied, trying to keep the conversation light while taking the order of another customer next door. "Ah, you know how it is, always running. But it's good to see you here, always with that smile," she praised, and I thanked her, although the pressure of bills and worries about my children's future weighed on my mind. While serving a group of young people who were laughing and talking loudly, I felt someone staring at me. A man in a suit, sitting alone at a table in the back, watched me with interest. I tried to ignore him, focusing on my work, but I couldn't stop my curiosity. He looked out of place, like he was somewhere he didn't belong. The morning passed quickly, and although the work was exhausting, I was happy to be there, doing what I could to provide a better life for Alex and Emily. At the end of the shift, I returned home, the weight of bills and worries piling up on my shoulders. As soon as I entered, the atmosphere of the apartment enveloped me. I looked at the bills on the table, and an involuntary sigh escaped my lips. "Come on, Sarah, you can do it," I muttered to myself, as I prepared myself for the conversation I was going to have with the twins. They deserved to know that, despite the difficulties, I would always fight for them. When Alex and Emily got home from school, I saw the anxiety on their faces. "Hi, Mom. You won't believe what happened today," Emily began, but I interrupted. "First of all, we need to talk about a few things." I sat down with them, and amid laughter and stories, I made a promise. "I will do everything for you to have a better life, even if it means I have to sacrifice some things." "But we don't want you to sacrifice anything, Mom," Alex said, worried. "I know, darling, but the love I feel for you makes me want to fight every day," I replied, hugging them tightly. At that moment, I realized that no matter how difficult it was, hope always found a way to bloom in my heart. The rain fell incessantly, and I was a little apprehensive looking out the window of my small apartment. The gray clouds reflected the storm brewing inside me. "Let's go to the park, kids," I said, trying to inject some energy into those dark hours. Alex and Emily, always full of life, jumped with joy. "Really, Mom? Even with this rain?" asked Alex with a mischievous smile. "Yes, let's have fun," I replied, trying to convey confidence. When we arrived at the park, the rain had already eased to a light drizzle. The smell of wet earth was invigorating, and the children wasted no time. They started running and playing ball, laughing and shouting with happiness. As I watched them, my heart warmed. That was the essence of childhood. Even with all the difficulties, they still managed to find joy in the little things. While they were playing, I noticed a man standing some distance away. He seemed to be watching us, and his expression was one of curiosity and contemplation. Who would he be? Jonathan, I thought, not knowing why that name came to mind. The rain started to increase in intensity, and I decided to get closer to them to try to protect the twins. As I got closer, the mysterious man also approached, seeking shelter under the tree. "Hi, I'm Sarah," he said, extending his hand. The man hesitated for a moment, but then shook my hand. "Jonathan," he replied with a smile. His gaze was deep, and there was something intriguing about it. "Do you have children?" I asked, trying to start a conversation while the twins continued to play. "Yes, I have a daughter. She loves parks, even when it's raining," he said, looking toward the children. The way he talked about his daughter made me realize he had a sensitive side. "It's amazing how much fun they can have, isn't it?" I commented, watching Emily do a cartwheel and Alex laugh out loud. "Yes, it's true. Childhood is a magical time, full of possibilities," Jonathan replied, his tone soft. "You seem like a devoted mother. It's admirable to see." I felt a wave of gratitude for his words, but at the same time a slight distrust. "I do what I can. My children's education is a priority for me," I said, trying to contain the vulnerability in my voice. Jonathan looked at me with genuine interest. "And how are you dealing with it? Education is a challenge, especially in difficult times." "It's complicated," I sighed, looking at the floor. "I work at a cafe, and although I love my job, it's not enough. Bills are always tight, and I just want them to have a better life than me." Jonathan watched me silently, as if absorbing every word. "You're a fighter, Sarah. That's inspiring," he said, and I wondered if he really understood what that meant. "If you need any help, don't hesitate to reach out to me," he offered, pulling a business card from his pocket. I know it may seem strange, but sometimes life takes us in unexpected ways. I looked at the card in his hand hesitantly. "Thank you, Jonathan. But honestly, I don't know if it would be right to accept help from a stranger." He smiled, a smile that seemed to hide several stories. "Sometimes the best things come from where we least expect them." The rain started to stop, and the children were still playing, oblivious to the conversation I was having. "I'll keep your card if I need to, but I hope you don't have to use it," he said, trying to divert the conversation. Jonathan nodded, but his eyes carried an intensity that left me intrigued. "Life is full of surprises, Sarah. You never know when you'll need a friend." Before we said goodbye, he told me, "Enjoy every moment with your twins. They're going to grow up fast." And with that, he walked away, leaving me with a strange feeling of hope and confusion. As I watched Alex and Emily running and laughing, I realized that no matter how difficult the days were, I still had everything that mattered: the love of my children. But somewhere in the back of my mind, the card Jonathan gave me began to weigh on me. What did it really mean? And, more importantly, would I really need it? The next few days were an emotional roller coaster for me. Financial pressure was gathering like storm clouds, and I knew I needed to do something. When I received the eviction letter, my heart sank. The yellowed paper seemed to scream for help, and a sense of desperation enveloped me. I looked at the twins, Alex and Emily, playing on the couch, and the thought of losing our home made me feel a sharp pain in my chest. It was time to act. With a shaking hand, I took Jonathan's card that he had given me in the park. It was such a simple gesture, but now it felt like a beacon of hope in the midst of the darkness. I took a deep breath and, on impulse, dialed his number. The phone ringing seemed eternal, and every second that passed made me question my decision. What if he doesn't answer? What if he remembers me as a stranger and doesn't want to help me? Thought. Hello. Jonathan's voice sounded clear and firm on the other end, and a wave of relief washed over me. Hi Jonathan, it's me, Sarah. My voice was hesitant, but I continued. I know we've been talking for a few days, but I need your help. The situation here at home got worse and... Well, I received an eviction letter. I heard silence for a moment that seemed to drag on. Jonathan was listening intently, and that gave me courage. I went ahead explaining the situation, how I worked at the cafe, how the twins were everything to me and how I wanted them to have a better future. Sarah, I didn't know things were so difficult. The concern in his voice was palpable. What do you think about talking in person? What if I can help? I was in shock. The idea that he might be willing to help was almost surreal. I hesitated, but the image of my children motivated me. So, with a lump in my throat, I accepted. We met in a small cafe, the same one where I worked, but this time I was the customer. Jonathan arrived punctually, his imposing presence contrasting with the simplicity of the place. He sat across from me, and the conversation flowed quickly. He asked me questions about the twins, about what they liked, their hopes and dreams. With each response from me, I saw his gaze soften, as if he really cared. Sarah, I would like to propose something. Jonathan finally said, his voice firm. I can finance your children's education at a prestigious school. They would have access to better opportunities, and this could change their lives. I felt my heart stop. His words echoed in my mind, and I could barely process the magnitude of what was being offered. It was as if a magic door had opened, but at the same time, a weight of guilt began to overwhelm me. That's incredible, but... My voice trailed off. I don't know if I can accept this. I don't want you to feel like you have to do this for me. He smiled, but there was a seriousness in his eyes. It's not charity, Sarah. It is an investment in the lives of two children who have a lot of potential. He paused before continuing. And I don't regret wanting to help. I looked at him, looking for a sign that his intentions were pure. The image of the twins happy at school, learning and growing, made me want to accept it. But what if they didn't adapt? What if life at an elite school became a burden? Jonathan, I started, but he interrupted me. Think about your children. They deserve this chance. And you deserve some relief too. Tears started to slide down my face. It was a tempting offer, but the fear that it could all be an ephemeral dream paralyzed me. But as I looked at Jonathan, I saw a man who was willing to support me. It was hard to ignore the hope he brought. Except, the words came out of my mouth before I could think twice. I accept your help. Jonathan smiled, and a wave of relief went through me. But at the same time, a whirlwind of emotions overwhelmed me. Gratitude mixed with insecurity, and I wondered if I was really worthy of that generosity. The first week at the new school was a real challenge. As soon as I entered the building, a mix of anxiety and insecurity took over me. The white walls and wide hallways felt like a maze, and I couldn't help but wonder if Alex and Emily were okay. I remembered the look on their faces the morning of the first day, full of hope but also fear. Mom, what if we can't make friends? Emily asked, holding my hand tightly. Let's try hard, my love. Let's show them how amazing you are, I replied, trying to convey confidence despite my own heart sinking. However, as soon as the twins separated from me and headed towards their rooms, I realized that the environment was not as welcoming as I had expected. Alex, always so outgoing, seemed hesitant when approaching a group of children who already knew each other. One of them looked at him with disdain and whispered something I couldn't hear, but it made Alex lower his head. Emily, on the other hand, was more excited, but I soon realized that her energy was also being held back by the suspicious looks of some girls. The first classes were a whirlwind of emotions. As I tried to understand the new teaching methods, I couldn't help but worry about my children. At the end of the day, I found Alex sitting on a bench in the courtyard, with his hands covered over his face. "What happened, my love?" I asked, sitting next to him. He sighed deeply before replying, "No one wanted to play with me, Mom. They said I was different." My heart broke. "You are special, Alex. The important thing is that you are yourself. One day, they will realize how amazing you are." That night, while preparing dinner, the doorbell rang. It was Jonathan, the billionaire who had changed our lives. He was smiling broadly, bringing a box of sweets and a book for each of the twins. "I thought you might like it," he said, handing out the gifts. I looked at him, a mix of gratitude and discomfort. "Thank you, Jonathan. You didn't have to do that." He smiled and said, "I like being here, and I want you to feel at home in this new school." Jonathan began to become more involved in our lives, organizing meetings and activities. It was as if he was becoming a father figure to the twins. I watched from afar, a little hesitant, but at the same time relieved. "They really like you," I commented in casual conversation. "It's easy to like them. They have a special shine," he replied, looking at the twins playing. That connection made me feel like maybe he really meant well. However, Jonathan's generosity was not seen favorably by everyone. At one of the school events, I heard some mothers whispering, "He must have some hidden interest in helping this family. It's not normal," one of them said. My heart sank. Their words echoed in my mind. What were they thinking about me? About Jonathan? Would I be allowing my children to get involved in something that could be harmful to them? Speculation began to spread like wildfire, and within days I realized the pressure was getting to Alex and Emily. They started to act more reserved, which only increased my anxiety. "Mom, do you think he wants something from us? We don't want to be a burden," Alex asked one night while we were having dinner. "No, my love. Jonathan is our friend. He cares about you," I replied, trying to believe my own words. The truth is, I was also starting to question his intentions. With every compliment I paid to the twins, a part of me wondered if there was something more behind that generosity. What did he really want? It was difficult not to feel a twinge of distrust, even in the face of so many good deeds. Life was changing for the better, but the weight of doubts followed me like a shadow. That night, while the twins slept, I sat at the kitchen table, lost in thought. The life I always dreamed of for them was coming true, but at what cost? The question that tormented me most was, how far could Jonathan's kindness take us? And, most importantly, would I be ready to deal with the consequences of this new reality? As the twins began to excel at their new school, a shadow of insecurity hung over Alex. I could notice the change in his behavior, especially when he moved away from Emily, the sister who had always been his best friend. Watching them from the living room couch as they did their homework, I could feel the tension in the air. "Alex, aren't you going to help Emily with her homework?" I asked, trying to break the silence that had settled in. He just shook his head, avoiding looking at me. "I'm tired, Mom. Let it go." I was worried. "Tired? Or do you just not want to be seen with her at school?" The question came out before I could think. Alex gave me a challenging look. "It's not that, Mom. Just different there. I don't feel comfortable." Those words cut me. As a mother, my heart ached as I watched my son struggle to fit in. "Look, I know it's hard, but you two are amazing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, okay?" Emily, who was quiet, looked at her brother and said, "I miss when we played ball together in the park." The sadness in his voice made me feel a lump in my throat. That day, Jonathan called me, realizing that the twins' situation was not good. "Sarah, I can tell something isn't right with Alex and Emily. What's going on?" His concern was genuine, and it touched me. "Alex is having a hard time adjusting, Jonathan. He feels insecure and is pulling away from Emily. I don't know how to help them," I replied, feeling the weight of my words. Jonathan thought for a moment. "I have an idea. I'm going to organize a good deed at school, an activity where the kids need to work together. It might help bring Alex and Emily back together. The proposal sounded good, but a part of me was apprehensive. Is it a good idea to expose my children like this? What if they feel pressured? Trust me, Sarah. Sometimes a little competition can help break down barriers and create bonds, he said, and his confidence calmed me. On the day of the event, the school was full of energy. There were tables set up, children running around and laughter echoing. Jonathan was there, overseeing everything with a smile. When I saw the twins, my heart was filled with hope. Are you ready for this? I asked, trying to convey encouragement. Let's try, Mom, Emily said, taking Alex's hand. But I could see he was nervous. Then Jonathan came over and said, Remember, the important thing is to have fun and work as a team. Don't worry about who wins or loses. The event began, and the twins were assigned to work with other children. I watched from afar, hoping that everything would go well. And to my surprise, I saw Alex slowly let go. He started laughing, joking, and even helping the group. Emily was by his side, encouraging him. However, the peace was quickly interrupted. During one activity, an older boy, who seemed determined to be the center of attention, began teasing Alex. Look, the poor twin. Are you going to be crying because you don't know how to play? Anger washed over me, but before I could intervene, Alex turned around and, visibly irritated, responded, Shut up. You don't know anything about me. The tension exploded. I ran towards the two, my heart racing. Alex, no. Don't do that. But it was too late. The boy didn't let it go and pushed Alex, who fell to the ground. The crowd stopped, and the growing murmur terrified me. What did I do? Was it all worth it? I thought, feeling the tears build up in my eyes. As I tried to help Alex up, I saw Jonathan approach. His expression steady and calm. Let's handle this differently, boys, he said, looking at Alex and the boy. You two have a chance to show you're better than this. His words were wise, and I hoped they would serve as a foundation for a new way of looking at things. At that moment, I realized that the real battle was not only against external challenges, but also against the internal fears that filled him. And above all, that family unity and mutual support were the keys to overcoming any obstacle. As the sun set, lighting up the city in orange and pink hues, I found myself in a dilemma. Jonathan, the billionaire who had changed our lives, was in his luxurious boardroom, facing a business friend who was questioning him about his intentions. I couldn't hear the conversation, but the tense atmosphere was palpable. Do you really think this is the best way, Jonathan? His friend's deep voice echoed, cutting through the silence in the room. Helping a single mother, that could ruin your reputation. You know how people talk, and you can't afford to be seen as a savior of lost causes. I felt my heart sink as I imagined the weight of those words on Jonathan. He was always so kind and genuine, but did his generosity have limits? I felt a mixture of anger and worry. I didn't want to be a burden on him, but I also didn't want him to move away because of prejudice. The twins, Alex and Emily, were at home watching a movie. I looked at them and saw the happiness on their faces. They were adapting to the new school, making friends, and even with the challenges, their laughter made everything lighter. What would happen if Jonathan decided to leave? Would it be another loss in our already complicated lives? Deep down, I knew Jonathan had his own battles. He was a businessman and his image mattered. But at the same time, I couldn't help but think he was engaging in something that was more than just a financial transaction. He cared, and that was rare. When Jonathan finally left the room, his face was somber. He hesitated when he saw me, as if he were preparing to tell me news he didn't want. Sarah, he began, his voice cracking a little. We need to talk. I nodded, feeling butterflies in my stomach. About what, Jonathan? I asked, trying to remain calm. About what I did. And what it means for us. He took a deep breath, as if weighing each word. My friend, he raised questions about my reputation. I don't want you and the twins to be affected by this. My heart raced. Are you thinking about walking away? Because of what people think? It's not just that, Sarah. I have a past. A story that you don't fully know. He hesitated, looking at the floor before continuing. There was a woman in my life who abandoned me for being a single mother. I don't want you to think I'm doing this out of guilt or to redeem myself. Tears started to slide down my face. Jonathan, you're here because you want to, aren't you? Not because you feel sorry for us. He looked at me, and his eyes were full of sincerity. Yes, Sarah. I care about you and the twins. What I feel for you is real. Those words were like a balm for my soul. I didn't want to be seen as needy, but the truth was that Jonathan had become an important part of our lives. So what are we going to do now? I asked, trying to maintain hope. He smiled, a smile that lit up his face. We're going to keep going. It doesn't matter what people think, what matters is what we feel. And I feel like you guys deserve a chance. I'm not going to walk away. Those words were a relief for me. I knew our journey would still have challenges, but having Jonathan by our side meant we weren't alone. Thank you for not giving up on us, I murmured, feeling the warmth of his presence. The twins appeared at the door, curious about our conversation. Hi, guys, Jonathan greeted, his expression changing to a lighter one. How are you? We are fine, Emily responded, her infectious smile lighting up the room. Can we watch one more movie? Jonathan looked at me, and I knew we were ready to face whatever came. Sure, he replied, but only if I can make popcorn. And so, as the laughter echoed through the house, I knew that, no matter the hardships, there was a bond we had built together. A bond that overcame adversity and showed that sometimes love and generosity are more powerful than anything. Prejudice.